Hi, I'm James and this is Meatster. Thank you for coming to watch. Today we are comparing 3 different dry-aged steaks. They are all Galician steaks, that is from the northwest of Spain, and they've had a varying amount of dry aging. So here we have the 3-week dry age, that's 21 days Galician steak. And here we have the 5-week, that's 35-day dry aged Galician Sirloin steak. That smells incredible. And here we have the 42-day dry aged sirloin steak, and honestly that thing looks incredible. So when I bought this piece of Galician steak, it already had 3 weeks of dry aging on it, so I thought this was a great opportunity to see what happens after another 2 weeks and another 3 weeks. And I did this down at my local butcher here in Ealing, that's Ealing Butchers. They were really helpful and put it in their dry aging cabinet for me, which was great. Although coming up soon, although it will take quite a few weeks, we're going to have a video where I actually dry age some beef in the fridge at home using an umai bag, but all will be explained at a future date. For now, I wanted to keep this one quite short and sweet. All we did was sous vide them at 132.5 Fahrenheit, and that was from semi-frozen. They'd been defrosting in the fridge overnight, and then you can actually sous vide from fully frozen or from partially frozen. That's fine. Now, I then had to cut them in half and save some for later for the kids who want to try it. And also I can't eat all of that steak in one go. I'd like to, but you know, that would be mad. So what you have to do is quickly get them out of the sous vide, cut them in half, and then re-vacuum pack the bits you want to save and put them straight into like a water bath with cold water with ice in it. Leave it there for a good 10-15 minutes and then put it in the fridge. And that really can work for any sous vide that you want to do in advance. If you've got a dinner party and you want to sous vide some rack of lamb or whatever it is, you can actually then keep it to sear it off later by using a water bath. Now then, these have been cooked really simply after that, just a bit of salt, a little bit of oil, and then they were just given a little bit of a sear on the outside. I'm starving, haven't eaten all day, and I want to let you know exactly how these taste. So let's start with the first one over here. This has been aged for just that 21 days. I've eaten this steak before, it's delicious. It already shows good characteristics of aging. So let's see that. I mean, it just, I actually didn't salt these very heavily today because I wanted to make sure I could taste the beef, and there's just that beautiful crust with a little bit of that savoury saltiness. And then, the texture is nothing like wet aged beef, really. It gets slightly denser, but also at the same time, it really doesn't take a lot to chew it, to bite it, because it's sort of tenderized itself over those weeks. So that's delicious. It has a slightly dry aged flavour, slightly gamey, but more than anything, the flavour has increased quite a lot. But between here and here, around 10% of the weight of the beef was lost in that first 2 weeks that I aged it. And that is amazing. I think obviously where it's been dry aged in my local butcher, they must have drier atmosphere where they dry it than where it's originally done. So that's quite interesting. And I want to see what the difference in flavour is, considering it's lost all of that extra. And you'll often notice with dry aged beef, when you cook it medium, which this is, that it's not bright red like you would get in a wet aged or unaged steak. It does have this different colour, and that comes from the aging process. It just changes as it dries out. Now this is a much stronger smell. So this one has a slight hint of the gamey mushroominess, but this is really much stronger, and it smells really intense. It's a much stronger flavour. Wow, that's very intense. I would say that's an acquired taste. I personally love it, but for a lot of people that would be very strong. I know that my wife would not enjoy this at all. So that's something to bear in mind. I think anyone can enjoy this. It's only got the hint of aging. It hasn't formed a lot of the sort of really dark skin on the outside that you get, which you might be able to see. It's almost like the rind of a ham that you get. which is on the outside. Now you can cut that off before you cook, but I'd say that this particular piece is a little bit drier than I expected, and that could just be down to the actual specific piece that I have here. Let me take a slightly thicker bit, make sure I cut off the pellicle off the outside, which was not fully cut off. And here we go. It definitely tastes almost like charcuterie, you know, it's been dried that much. So that's 35-day dry age. Let's see what 42-day aged is like. Now this was a nice, thick, robust piece. That smells incredible. I've got a feeling that this came off the thinnest end. You know, the sirloin has a sort of shape like that, and that this will have been affected the most, this end of it, because I've got to say that is not the best piece you could possibly eat. You can tell that by looking at the colour and the way it's sort of dried out a little bit. That's a shame. But now this looks like a really great piece, a really prime piece here. Cheers. Okay, that's it. That's got to be, I think that's from the heart of the sirloin. That's from the real wonderful bit with the most marbling and the fattest bit. That has great flavour, great texture. Okay. All right, so this is what I would say if you want to answer the question of, is more dry aging always better? Well, I'd have to say no, it's not. From no dry aging to 2 weeks, in a previous video I showed that there is a really amazing difference in the first 2 weeks. I think you get some of the best bits of the difference in that first 2 weeks. It increases the intensity of flavour without showing any really gamey, sort of maybe off-putting flavours for some people, and the tenderness gets better in that short 2 week span. By the third week you start to see an even more accentuated change of those same things, and it's probably, I think, at a good level for most people, so 21-day dry aged. By the time you get to 35-day, you can really notice that it's been aged quite significantly. The whole texture changes, and the flavour is really not reminiscent of a normal steak in many ways. Now, bearing in mind that Galician steak itself is already a more flavoursome cut of beef coming from an older cattle. You know, these are between 10 and 15 years old as opposed to 3 years old. So there is already a stronger flavour in there, and that's part of the reason to eat Galician steak. And when you age it this much, you can really tell. So I would, if you're not that keen on dry age flavours, 21 to 28 days dry age would probably be ideal for you. Now, by the time you get into 42 days, there's no getting past the fact that it's been aged. But that could take some really great flavour. I'll tell you what else, it would also go with some really delicious oaky Rioja from the heart of northern Spain, where, you know, some of the best wine in Spain is produced. It would go ideally with something with this level of flavour. It could combat the oak of the wine with the real charcuterie gaminess of this piece of beef. On top of that, whereas you might put a mildly flavoured steak with bayonnaise sauce, there's no reason why you couldn't have this with aioli. This could stand up to that stronger flavour, and I think that would be really delicious. So guys, I wanted to keep this one a little bit shorter than previous videos. What you can see is that already by 3 weeks you have great dry aged steak. I think there's a lot of marketing hype with 28 days and above, and they can charge you a lot of money for it. 21 days does a really great job. We saw that in the last video with the USDA Prime. 21 days was absolutely stunning. By the time you get to 35 days and over, you're really showing a massive amount of aging, and it's something that then becomes more of an acquired taste, that you have to want that particular type and flavour of beef to enjoy. So I hope you found that useful. I'm going to go off and finish the rest of this with some delicious sort of sauce, hopefully, that I can whip up really quickly. But otherwise, thank you for watching. If you enjoy this sort of content, go ahead and subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and comment down below. What do you think about dry aged beef? How long do you like it to be dry aged for? And what other cuts would you like me to dry age in future? All right, guys, cheers.